Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. I'm so excited because today we are finally tackling the Offshore Romper by Ocean Code Patterns. It is so cute. I cannot believe it took me this long to make it, but I'm so excited to show you all the tutorial for that. But before we do that, I do want to announce our giveaway. I will be giving away a binding attachment exactly like the one that I use in all of my videos and all of my tutorials, so that you can do it at home as well, so you can follow along with my videos. All you have to do to enter is share one of my videos to any platform, anywhere that you frequent, any social media platform. All you have to do is share one of my videos, it could be any of them, and send me a screenshot through Instagram. My Instagram is the same as my YouTube, Foxy Luna Shop. I'll include a link to my profile down below as well, but that is it. That's all you have to do to enter, and then I will be randomly selecting a winner and I will send you a binding attachment completely free. I also wanted to give a little disclaimer. My sister was practicing her nail skills on my nails, so if they look a little wonky, that's why. But anyways, I wanted to help her out, so I did. And yeah, without further ado, let's get ready to make this romper. And yes, we will be using the binding attachment, so make sure to enter so you can make one too. Alright, so here we have the pattern pieces. There's just two, which is the main for the front and back, and then this little gusset. And I already have everything cut out, so I'm going to show you. I have one for the front, one for the back, my little gusset, and there is measurements for the binding, so whatever binding method you're using, you can look at the chart, but I just have a lot of pre-binding made up. I don't know. So anyways, first thing is we are going to sew the gusset to the front and the back down here. For this part, I'm bringing over my little pattern piece. You can kind of, because it's hard to see on my fabric, but here and here are two little points. So that's where you're going to line up your gusset. So you are just, sorry, I got stuck to my nail. You are just going to sew on the gusset following those two little points. It should just line up like that. And then once you have one side sewn, you're going to do the exact same thing and sew this little gusset over to your front. It doesn't really matter which one you start with, but there you go. And sorry, this DBP is kind of thin, so it's rolling a little bit, but I'll show you what it looks like once it's done. Alright, so here's what mine looks like. Again, you just attach it to the front and to the back. I did have to stretch it a little bit. But next, I'm going to use the pattern piece so that I can mark where we're starting our binding. So I'm just laying it on top like this. And for this part, you can use tailor's chalk, you can use something washable, but I don't have any at the moment. So I'm just going to use my pen and mark it on both sides. So just along here. Alright, I have both sides marked up. So now we are going to start our binding, and for the binding, you're going to take your starting position, and then you are just going to follow all the way along here, binding, all the way to this little edge here, which is about where the armpit starts. Depending on which side we're doing, you might have to start with the armpit and then go all the way down, over, and then stop at that point. So it just depends which side you start on. But now I'm going to go over and do that. Now I do have different binding tutorials, but today we are going to use our binding attachment like I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Okay, hopefully y'all can see. I'm feeling a little weird with this setup. But anyways, I'm just going to put it in where my little dot is starting and then just go for it. And the thing with this is you definitely want to make sure that you're feeding it over here, like that this isn't getting all tangled up and whatever. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep feeding it through, holding my binding on the right side as well. Since there's curves, I'm just going a little bit slower than I normally would. Yeah, you're just gonna follow along the whole body of the romper. almost towards the end. I just keep going for a little bit longer. Things are falling. What the heck? And then I'm just going to clip it. Sorry, I always run into my tripod. I'm just going to, and also where we first started, I'm gonna clip it as well because we don't need that. But okay, now I'm going to do the other side as well and show y'all what that looks like. Oh, and before I do that, definitely switch out your binding. And then, because what we're left with is not going to be long enough, so I just have a whole strip the width of my fabric. Anyways, make sure to switch it out before you do the next side. I'm just about done with this side, but I realized I cannot see my little marking once it goes in there, so I just added a pin. And I'm going to keep binding it until that pin. Then I just move my fabric to the side so that it didn't keep binding the fabric. And all done. Now take the pin out. So again, here's what my romper is looking like. Sorry, this is upside down, but this is what it should look like with the binding. And now, since I still have binding left in my strip, I'm going to do the top. So the top of the front, or this is the front, the top of the front and the top of the back. So just the neck. All right, so I already have both necks made, and I already did this side of the romper, as you can see, just so y'all can see what we're aiming for. But now I'm going to show you the steps. So first, I just like to turn my romper wrong side out. And we'll be using a lot of pins for this step, so make sure you have some. And for the first step, I'm actually going to mark with a pin about 1/2 inch down so that I know where to end with the overlap, but just right there. But all you're going to do is bring your binding, and you want to see the wrong side of it. So like this side of your binding, and then you want to overlap this raw edge of your fabric right on the edge of the binding. So it should lay right on the white edge, like that, so that you can't see any of it. And then all I'm going to do is pin all the way down, and then that will be my stopping point. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and just kind of show you what it looks like. All right, so there is what it looks like all pinned up. So now I'm going to bring this over to my sewing machine. But first I want to show you where we're stitching. So I'm actually going to turn it back out, like right side out, so y'all can see, like here's the front and then here's the back. So all we're going to do is stitch along the edge right here. It says to stitch along the edge of the binding, but I actually want to just stitch right in that first needle, you know what I mean? So right on the edge, and just sew right on top of the stitches that are already there for the cover stitch, and go all the way down. Now it's going to be a little finicky because the pins are on the inside. I mean, you can please learn how to speak, Carla. You can decide to, you know, put in new pins and take out the pins from the back. That way you're not like messing around with too much like this. But I don't really mind having the pins on the inside. I can just pull them out as I'm sewing. But now let's go to the sewing machine. So for this step, exactly like I said, we're using a straight stitch and trying to follow along with the stitches that we already made with our cover stitch. Now, I will say getting it to start is a little bit finicky, so I'm actually going to start a little bit below, because once we add in our straps, it'll close up this initial starting point. So I'm going to start a little bit lower just so that my machine catches it. And another tip, if you're like starting to line it up, you can lower your needle. And as you can see, mine was a little bit off, so I'm gonna move it a little bit and then see where your needle is going to hit before you start. So anyways, I'm just going to, like I said, try to aim for those initial stitches that we made, oops, with our cover stitch. Just work my way down and make sure that you are removing your pins. I know some people say they can sew over their pins with a sewing machine, but I never want to take any chances. So I'm just going to keep going down, remove my pins, and show y'all how I finish towards the end. All right, so now we're coming up towards the end, and for this part you want to make sure that there is no extra fabric in the way, like you don't want to sew something that you don't need to. And now I'm going to use, kind of like we did with our binding, another pin to pinpoint where I want it to stop. So along there. Just so that we know, because we're gonna pivot around that area. And keep going. Just around there. And now I'm going to, like I said, take my pin out and pivot. So all you need to do is make sure that your needle is down, lift your presser foot, and just make everything perpendicular. And now I am going to make sure everything's laying flat. Go forward a little bit, and then back stitch. And then forward a little bit, and back stitch, just to make sure that it's nice and secure. And then we're gonna pull everything out. Alright, so now all that is left to do is to make the straps. I do still have my binding that I pre-cut, and you know I like to keep it easy, so I'm just going to feed. I'll actually like it around 10 inches for straps, but I'm going to actually feed a bunch first when you're making a strap, and then we want to insert our binding, so I'll show you that for the strap. Alright, so I got a new strip in there, and now, like I said, I'm just going to let it run until I feel like it's long enough, but I also brought out my little tape measure just in case. Okay, it's definitely long enough now, so I realize it doesn't really matter which side you start with, but just make sure that you're starting with a right side facing you. So we are going to place the neck in and just bind like we normally would. Making sure that everything gets caught in there. It's kind of twisting a little bit. And then same thing for the end, we're just going to let it run until we feel it's long enough. Alright, here's what my straps are looking like. So all I'm going to do is measure out like about 9 inches and then cut them straight across for all straps. All I'm going to do is make sure that the tops of my necks are nice and even, and then use my little tape measure to around, we'll do 8.5 and still a little bit short, but we'll do about 8.5 for each side of the straps. Alright, so there are my 8.5 inch straps, and now you can decide if you want to loop the ends or not. I think I will, just for a cute little touch. So all you do is wrap it around and make just a little knot at the end, like this. I think that's a little cute touch, so I'm going to do that to all 4. Alright, so here is the finished product. It turned out so cute. I am definitely in love with the smile. A labor of love for sure. It does take a little bit of time, but I am so obsessed with this, and the fact that I use this panel, like, such a vibe right here. So that is it for this video. I will catch you all in the next one.